Hello, it's me. So here we are with another one of the USA's gifts that keep on giving. And I say that with a mind to all the victims in the case. This is humorous only from the point of view that once again we see the powers that be in a country, in a westernized democracy, fall over themselves and lurch from one disaster to another after telling us without any equivocation, we're going to bring everyone to book. We're going to release the information. Everyone's going to jail because they did bad things. And now here we are, months, over a year later, and earnest individuals, sincere individuals like Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel have, in my opinion, been compromised. And the tool for that compromise has been the Epstein client list, which existed and now doesn't exist. But like Schrodinger's cat, because we can't see it, we can't be entirely sure. So, shout out to News Nation and their coverage. Go over there, show them some love. Let's see what they have to say on the matter.
Tension within the Trump administration over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files is now erupting into a full-on clash between the Deputy FBI Director, Dan Bongino, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. There are now questions over the future of Bongino in his current role and whether he still even wants it with the help.
No. And I think this is the nub of the video that I'm making today is we've had reports that Dan Bongino has spoken to people and has said that he's considering resigning. Even Kash Patel has rumours surrounding him saying that he might also resign. The only person there are no rumours of her saying that she might resign is Pam Bondi. Arguably, Pam Bondi is the person who should resign first, because the client list that is no longer, was sat on her desk, slowly conjuring up a way to magically disappear off a desk and no longer exist, one would imagine. But it's no longer on a desk. So, where does that leave Bongino? Well, I think Bongino, against his own best advice, was told, look, this client list no longer exists, and you're going to toe the line. And he didn't want to do it, but he did it, and now, after seeing the fallout, I mean, he's wrecked. He used to have a podcast, he used to speak out about government corruption, all kinds of subjects. He's time served. I think genuinely a good man. And he's been brought to this. So what do good men do when they've been compromised? They fall on their sword. Because morality has a way of coming home and biting you squarely on the ass. And in a good way, not a bad way. Because if he resigns, let me be clear, I think that would be a good thing. So whereas he might not be able to spill the beans, so to speak, what we're looking at is somebody who will no longer be constrained by his office. So let's carry on.
Reporting Bongino was absent from his post today. News Nation's Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer joins us now with the details right from the White House. Hello, Kelly. There are reports now that Kash Patel is also considering stepping down as FBI director over this. Help us separate fact from fiction here. There are a lot of stories, a lot of headlines coming in.
Yeah, the big news on this Friday, certainly. And Henna, this White House tonight, they are flatly denying all of this, saying President Trump assembled this team and that the work is being carried out, quote, seamlessly and with unity. And a White House official telling me tonight this, quote, any attempt to sow division within this team is baseless and distracts from the real progress being made in...
That's just the standard BS line sent out from the House of Power. And you will find it in any House of Power going out. No, we're all acting as one. Everything is absolutely fine. Not a problem. And I think these messages, when they come out, are generally, they generally precede the very falling apart of the thing that they're sent out to say isn't falling apart.
Restoring public safety and pursuing justice for all. And the Deputy Attorney General echoing that, writing on X, quote, the suggestion by anyone that there was any daylight between the FBI and DOJ leadership on this memo's composition and release is patently false. So the DOJ and the FBI issued a joint unsigned memo this week insisting that Epstein did not have a client list and that he was not murdered. So the memo...
It makes no sense. If by some unlikely turn of fate that you're new to all of this, go back on YouTube and look the last 12 months, 15 months, 2 years at the interviews given by, just concern yourself with, in the first instance, Bongino and Patel. Go back. Have a look at all the stories on the various podcasts. It's fascinating to listen to. Because those two men leave you with no doubt that they're all over this and that there are people who need to be brought to book for the worst type of crimes. And they are elite, at the top of the pile, in the most exclusive organizations.
Splitting the MAGA movement, with many insisting Attorney General Bondi promised there was a list and that she'd seen it. News Nation reported earlier this week that FBI leaders would have unsealed evidence related to the Epstein case if they had been able to do so, sources implying their hands were tied by the DOJ. So Trump coming out this week, releasing a statement praising the work of Patel and Bongino at the FBI, but didn't comment about Pam Bondi. Henna.
Kelly Meyer, this just broke a little while ago. Thanks for keeping us updated live at the White House. Let's go now to News Nation chief Washington anchor and On Balance host Leland Vittert. Hello, friend. You have new reporting tonight. This is a huge issue in the White House right now. What are you hearing from the administration?
So from a senior administration official, a very, very trusted source of mine, saying the rift between Pam Bondi and Bongino/Patel is, quote, not a small deal. The reporting is that Bongino has said he will leave if Bondi...
Assuming because of her office, Pam Bondi is the gatekeeper on this. And assuming because Bongino knows how this all works, as I said, time served and all that. Can you imagine what that meeting was like? Because you can bet your bottom dollar Bongino doesn't know who spoke to Pam Bondi. That's way above Bongino's pay grade. And up until the meeting with Pam Bondi, it probably would have been above her pay grade. But there's this. I was listening to an interview with Alex Jones, conspiracy theorist extraordinaire. But guess what? Proved right more times than he was proved wrong. So he thinks Bongino will be gone by next week. Patel probably, he thinks, won't resign. I'm not sure if I agree with him on that. Because here's the thing for me. Why are they resigning? Is it because of the shit show and they've lost credibility? Or is it because of the shit show and they realise, hold on, this isn't what I signed up for? I think it's the latter. I think they towed the line initially. They were put in a position that they couldn't get out of. But now, after all the flack and the birds have come home to roost, so to speak, he sat here looking at all the things he said previous to coming into power. We're talking about Bongino now. And looking at where he is now as the Deputy Director of the FBI and realizing very quickly that everything is in tatters. The person he was before he was in position compared to the person he is being forced to become in position are irreconcilable. And I think it's the same for Kash Patel. And obviously the same for Pam Bondi. But if the two men at the top of the FBI resign and Bondi resigns, everyone who resigns from this effectively throws into the light the fact that the client list is real, that crimes were committed, that Epstein wasn't a lone operator, it was a massive network, and Trump and Prince Andrew, amongst many other high wealth, high net, high status individuals, are involved across the planet. Because if, as I suspect, and I think really is just not even a conspiracy theory anymore, Epstein was an asset, Ghislaine Maxwell is an asset, this is what intelligence services do. They set up honeypot traps and they compromise influential individuals for use in operations to destabilize and reshape the world as we know it on a level that we as normal citizens don't generally see, which is why all this is so very conspiratorial. So, onwards.
Does not. And then and Patel said, I will too. It's clear that there has been some divisions between Kash Patel and Bondi. There's some friction between the two. This now is really coming to a head.
You mentioned the friction. Conservatives are so split over this issue, as you well know. Some are really angry at the Trump administration for not having more on Epstein. Do you think they overpromised?
That's a great question. The point, I think, here that we've seen publicly is that Pam Bondi said, I have the list on my desk. When you're the Attorney General of the United States and you say something like that, you can't then come out and say there's no list. That is seen as an enormous foul up on her part.
Because she now says
really kind of small
files, not list.
Unforced error that has now caused the President of the United States.
Thereby meaning that the clients on the list
number one.
never really existed.
Number two, the explanations of why they're not releasing more on Epstein, because maybe there's not an exact list, but there's gigabytes worth of data that the FBI has of Epstein's files, videos, names, documents. That's all not being released. So there's a lot of anger over that and how it was handled, that Pam Bondi put out this memo on Sunday. Sort of, I think what it underlines is that Bondi...
On a slightly different subject, but related nonetheless, what we need here is what's going on in the UFO sphere. If you're not aware, UFOs, once thought to be flights of fancy by crazy people, have now broken through into the mainstream, because guess what? All these crazy people, well, looks like they may not have been so crazy. And the reason that's come about is because of, anyone? Whistleblowers. Brave people with security clearances who've come out and said, the American people need to know UFOs exist and beings exist, whether they're alien or interdimensional, whatever it might be. The upshot of it all is apparently no one really knows, but they exist. That's what we need here. We need brave brave individual or individuals to blow this thing wide open, thereby getting Bongino, Patel, and Bondi off the hook. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, maybe all this is where this is going. All this talk of resignation to show the right kind of indignation. Look, we've been made to say this. We're not happy. We're resigning, which is the right thing, of course. But if Donald Trump coming to power teaches us anything, is that politics moves in very, very strange ways. And I personally have got my fingers crossed and I'm hoping for a whistleblower in this. For some information, documents just to somehow miraculously appear in the email box of one of these News Nation reporters. For them to break that news so that Bongino, Patel, and Pam Bondi can breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, right, now let's negotiate this new landscape and see if we can't come out on top with the right thing being done, even if it wasn't by us. And of course, there's a moral question there. If they didn't release it intentionally, should they be in office? Because we are talking about one of the worst crimes. So,
does not understand MAGA and does not understand what Epstein represents and the Epstein files represents in MAGA world. And look, we've seen this happen in dozens of cases on both Republican and Democratic administrations over the past 20 years in Washington. It's either him or me, or her and me, that one official will say about another. It's normally not about one thing. This is the public issue. Traditionally, typically, and from what I understand, there's a lot more below the surface that we just don't know of this clash.
Do you think Bondi's being thrown under the bus a bit here, Leland?
I'm not sure.
No.
I guess maybe she's driving the bus that hit her because she's the one who said public.
I think Bongino specifically is literally, as I say, looking at everything. It's in tatters, and he's like, right, how do I get myself out of this? Because everyone involved in this still has a life to live after this. Whether it's after the Epstein thing blows over or when they end up leaving power. This is not just not a good look. This is a difficult thing to live with because of the nature of the crimes. These people have been heavily compromised. And the question is are you protecting these crimes? Or are you exposing them? Which is how they all got their jobs, because they said they were just willing at any cost to expose these crimes. Shall we?
And didn't have to. The Epstein client list is on my desk. So you were lying then or you're lying now? Which one is it? And that is really the problem. The one thing that Donald Trump will not tolerate or defend is when you make unforced errors that make him look bad. And especially to make him look bad in front of his base.
Okay, on that note, Donald Trump doesn't like enforced errors that make him look bad. Like being in photographs, speaking with Jeffrey Epstein. There are quite a few photographs of Trump with Epstein. Trump has already put out a statement, I think ages and ages ago, saying he never had any business dealings with him and he wasn't his friend. But there's that meeting, isn't there? That person had, I can't remember. I do apologize. I can't remember what it is, but somebody in a restaurant went up to Ghislaine Maxwell, it may have been a reporter, and said the reporter wants the tapes of Donald Trump with the girls. And then Ghislaine Maxwell was put in an awkward position in a public restaurant of having to defend herself. There was a backwards and forwards, to and a fro. The conversation then went in the direction of, well, if you do one side, you've got to do the other. If you do Trump, you've got to do Clinton. And so that means Clinton's involved. Thereby going back to my previous statement of these very influential people across the planet all being suckered into honeypot traps. So, where does that leave us? What do you think? Do you think Bongino should resign? Do you think Patel should resign? Do you think Bondi should resign? If so, why so? My personal feeling is this. The information should be leaked at this point now. Somehow Bondi should find a mechanism to leak it, and she can bask then in, and so can Patel and Bongino bask in that reflected glory. That with the leak, they can at least say, as I said earlier, breathe a sigh of relief and go, well, there it is, it's out now, and they can concoct some story as to why they weren't releasing it previously. They can make all of that up. And who will care so long as the people who've committed crimes end up facing the weight of the law? And with regards to Trump can still get out of this, providing he hasn't committed any crimes, because that's the bottom line. And this is what's so chilling about it. If you were involved with a man like Epstein, and you were just at parties and people were shagging and it was all consensual adult stuff, no one gives a monkey's. No one cares. However, if you were at these parties and there weren't consenting adults, and there was no consent, then you've committed a crime, and there's no getting past that. So, what does this tell us? It tells us this is a big, big shit sandwich, and we're all going to have to take a bite. So, until next time, this is me signing off. Look after yourselves.